Welcome to WMD, that's Woody's Modelling Diary. And today just a small update on my 00 gauge Lasgrate project layout. You may recall, if you've watched some of my videos at the beginning of the year, and that's 2024 in case anybody's watching this in 5 years time, I did outline how I'd sort of settled on the track plan for this side of the layout, which basically has some hidden siding to station, bit of a goods yard. It does lead round there, and then this sort of area is more or less as it should be. So I'm now at the stage where I'm beginning to try to get things, if I can settle things, the camera back down, where I'm beginning to fix things down. So I started with this corner of the layout, and once that's finished I'll be about half the layout done. So the track is laid on laminate flooring underlay. This is a small piece of it. It's about 5mm thick. It gives you a nice shoulder to your ballast. It's also flat. Gives a little bit of flexibility when you're running trains over it because it's a foam base, and it does quieten things down a little bit. So that's been glued down after it was cut to shape. The track itself, well, I weathered that by taking the track off the baseboard and just in effect spraying it at the workbench. You'll notice that there are areas such as the points and some of the joints between track sections where I've masked it off to avoid getting paint into the electrical parts, and I'll hand paint those later on. The track itself will be further weathered once the ballast is done and I've got other things done. The track is all wired. One of the interesting things was when the modern day DCC first came in about 20 years ago, it was widely sort of advertised that you just needed 2 wires on a layout, and to some degree that is true. I could get away with 3 circuits on this, or 4 circuits almost, with 6 to 8 wires, but I'm still working on the old sort of analog principles that just about every track section needs a power feed to it. So underneath the layout, you'll have to excuse the balancing and the rubbish under here, but you begin to get an idea of just how many wires there are, and that's all just temporarily sort of connected up to a joint box there. There are other wires, and eventually there'll be 3 of those joint boxes, which, if we get up here, are these things. Very handy because you can feed your wires in and take 2 feeds out to your DCC power. All the wiring is color coded. For the powers, I've used these brown and white wires. If you are doing a large layout like this is probably about the cheapest way you can buy your wires in 100-meter reels. I'm hoping that that's going to be sufficient to do this layout, but we'll have to see. Ballast wise, just before I do get onto that, I do have some tubing which I've painted orange, and I'll be cutting that to various lengths to fit in between and either side of the track, just for electrical ducting. The ballast itself is this Woodlands medium ballast, which is sold in big bottles like this and is the most economical way to do it. It's a fairly light product, certainly beats the weight of the old granite chippings which you could get. It doesn't go green when you add water either, and I do glue it down with a diluted PVA, which I tend to mix up in this old Co-op strawberry jam jar. I usually mix up quite a large batch, probably about 3/4 of a jar there, half water, half PVA, a few drops of washing up liquid, and then shake that up, and it's quite handy because it's in the bottle. It avoids sort of spilling stuff as you do that. Before applying it, I do tend to just spray a little bit of this IPA, or what used to be known as rubbing alcohol, and I apply the actual glue with one of these old syringes, which for those of you who can remember back in the days when you could refill your own printer cartridges, never throw anything away, because this has come in quite handy. The printer is long gone, but the syringe for the ink still remains, so that's quite handy. Applying ballast, I tend to initially just brush on at the edges a sort of neat PVA, and then just sort of spread the ballast over the top of that, and you can sort of push it into place with a piece of card, or in this case this old piece of foam underlay. That gives you a neat area, and then I tend to fill in and literally just sort of spread it, and then use a bit of a brush just to get it into the right places. It's a very smooth brush, which happens to be off Mrs. Woody's dressing table. She still hasn't noticed that I've got this. And just use your finger, and you can also just tap lightly, and that sort of just vibrates the ballast into place. And again, just apply your glue. Don't go overboard with the glue, you can go back on it again, and that tends to give you your ballast. As you can see, there's still a lot of ballasting on here to be done. That's going to take a while, so what I'm going to do is sort of treat that at small sections. I did this in over a couple of days, and there's probably 4 days worth of fairly leisurely ballasting. It's one of those jobs which you either love or hate. Personally, I quite enjoy it, but for short periods only. Once that's in place, then we can start moving on to the next board. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to just have to deal with these joints and the track at the baseboard. Obviously, you've still got to sort out the plywood strips I'm going to put in here, and then some copper clad sleepers to solder the rail to, and then I can cut through, which will then enable me to lift this board or turn it on its side and get on with the wiring underneath and fitting the point motors, which is going to be a lot easier than crawling underneath it. So that's one of the advantages of building a sectional layout. There you go. I hope that's of interest, just to show that things are happening, and as usual we'll just round off with a few trains running. something that was of interest in that for you. It does show that a layout like this does take its time to build. It's not the most logical way to build a model railway. You could do it a lot of other ways and more methodically. I've always worked on the principle that I enjoy seeing something run, and that gives me the impetus to keep going with the building of the layout. So I've always been in a position where from a very early stage I've been able to run trains. So some of the things that I do with regards to building may not be the most logical way, but it's always allowed me to be able to run some trains, which is an important part. It does give you that mental ability to really get on with the job, because you can come out and you can run trains when you want to, but equally you do see progress. Might be slow, but it's progress with other parts. Some of it is not the most glamorous, wiring up, ballasting. It does take time. You don't see a great deal for the amount of effort you put in, but when you've got a smooth operating layout, that's when all of that work pays dividends. Interestingly enough, Mike Potter from Budget Model Railways, some of you may have seen his channel, Exceedingly Good. He does advocate sort of building small layouts which you can get running things fairly quickly. I'm slightly different. I've just used an unorthodox way of building, so don't follow my ways if you want to achieve the ultimate in professionalism. If you want to follow my ways to be able to just enjoy the hobby as an amateur, a keen amateur, then there's some things which I show you which you may feel that's the way to go. But anyway, that's enough of me rabbiting on. As I always say to those of you who subscribe, thank you. I'm still somewhat amazed when I see people subscribing. It's marvellous. Thank you very, very much for doing that. I'm not doing this for money or anything of this like that. This is just purely Woody rabbiting on, trying to pass on a little bit of his information, learning from others who've made comments, and there you go. Enjoy the hobby, have fun. That's what it's all about. And far from being dead, I think this hobby has got a lot further to go. Anyway, thanks ever so much for watching. You take care of yourselves, and we'll see you again, hopefully with a little bit more progress on here. Bye.